Democracy in Tunisia is in a precarious situation. While it was once seen as the sole democracy emerging from the so-called Arab Spring, which was sparked in Tunisia with the suicide by public self-immolation of Mohamed Bouazizi, the country has since then experienced significant setbacks. Since Kais Saied rose to power in 2019, he has started a process of dismantling democracy in Tunisia. In July 2021, he used the protests against his government's management of the COVID-19 crisis to extend his powers as a president, dismissing the prime minister and suspending parliament, as well as partially suspending the 2014 constitution in what experts and observers called a constitutional coup. In July 2022, a referendum over a new constitution took place. Despite a boycott and a participation rate of only 30%, the new constitution was put into effect, further cementing and extending Said's powers. Since then, there has been an increasingly severe crackdown against activists and migrants, which came to a peak in July 2023, when more than 4,000 migrants were deported into the desert bordering Libya and Algeria without food, water, or shelter, resulting in a still unknown number of deaths. We have traveled to Stockholm to meet Hamza Nasri, a queer political activist and human rights defender from Tunisia, who has been living here in exile for the past 2 years. Hamza is the co-founder of IARF, the Intersection Association for Rights and Freedoms, and is continuing his work advocating for human rights in Tunisia here in Sweden. We have come here to talk with him about his work and experience as a queer human rights defender, the development of Tunisia's political landscape since his beginnings as an activist, his life and work here in Sweden, and the recent immigration deal between Tunisia and the EU.
How does your work look like? What is IARF doing?
Yeah, so basically our work is divided in two bigger subjects. The first is documenting and reporting human rights violation in Tunisia, empowering human rights activists and human rights defenders. This is locally in Tunisia and in the region. And outside Tunisia, we are doing a huge advocacy work, especially now after the coup of 25th of July 2021, and after President Kais Saied taking all the power in his hand, and after things started escalating in Tunisia and the backlash of democracy. So we're trying to do an international advocacy work here in Sweden and in the European Union with politicians, decision makers, national and international agency. And my work is to contact, to reach out, to explain, to give more clear idea about what's happening in Tunisia. And we have a major focus now on the political prisoner issue. Yeah.
And when would you say did your political activism start?
In 2008, something more local happened in Tunisia. It was like a small revolution where I lived in the region of Gafsa. And a lot of people went to street, demonstrated against Ben Ali. And it was the first time I speak or I get interested into local politics, because usually we're allowed in Arab world to talk about politics happening outside our borders or outside our countries, but inside our countries we were not allowed to. And I remember people saying 20 ans de dégâts, Ben Ali dégage-toi. 20 years of disasters or catastrophes, political catastrophes, Ben Ali leave. Mm-hmm. And people are speaking about Ben Ali. Who can speak about Ben Ali, or who can critique Ben Ali? So that was the very first local inside the country political act that was interesting to me. Later then, in 2010, my father is from a very small village in Sidi Bouzid, the very first revolutionary city in Tunisia in 2010. And I remember my cousins, because we lived outside this small town called Sidi Bouzid in a near town. My cousins fled from Menzel Bouzayan to our house because they've been targeted by the police in this small town. And I remember our grandpa's neighbor was killed and shot by the police officers even before the death of Mohamed Bouazizi. So Mohamed Bouazizi burned himself. He stayed in hospital. During his stay in hospital, 2 young men was killed in this small city. So I got more involved, maybe because of blood bonds or family bonds, because I saw my cousins fleeing. And I remember once we've been told that militia are going to invade stores in our small village because of the revolution. So my aunt, she had a very small library. We had to take everything from the library to the house. So when we decided to go on a demonstration, we didn't have pens to write. So I remember I took a pink pen and I wrote slogans on a white paper with pink pens, which is very awkward in a very southern conservative city in Tunisia. So, and even though I wasn't very religious at that time, I remember the demonstration started from Salat al-Jumu'ah. We was like 3 young guys demonstrating against Ben Ali, which is something very unconventional, if we may say. So yes, my very first political act was this small, tiny demonstration, and people looked at us and say, "You're going to be put in jail, you don't know what's happening." And after 2 days, Ben Ali left, and it was like a victory for me. The young boy demonstrating against a dictatorship, and the dictator left the country. Yeah, since then things escalated and I started getting more involved. I remember my father was the headmaster of the high school that I'm studying in, and I remember me demonstrating against my father because it was like a fever of demonstration in Tunisia at that time. So yes, in 2010, 2011 things escalated and we started to get more involved. Yeah.
And how did you experience this episode, especially these 2 awakening years, I would say, of political activism?
Yeah, we had a big dream, very big dream. We believed that we're going to live in democracy, and at the moment we didn't have, if we may say, the consciousness that building a democracy is a long, heavy process. We thought that like this, we're going to be a democratic, developed country, and we didn't know at that time how much diverse and different, and that how much we have angles of seeing things. And this was a little bit disappointing for me, because when we was against Ben Ali, we was united. After Ben Ali left, we became smaller groups with more specific demands, with more specific ambitions.
Can you define a little bit which different positions were there?
Yeah, due to all what I mentioned, I built kind of leftist human rights approach on politics, and at that time conservatism was spreading over Tunisia. Islamic conservatism, at least Islamism, was ruling, and we thought that we were going to elect in the very first election progressive, democratic government, but unfortunately the Tunisian people voted for Ennahda, and this was shocking for us, at least leftist and human rights wing politicians. So yes, and we started the battle of not allowing Islamic parties to to oblige us or to put in the constitution what they wanted to. And then we knew, at least me, I knew at that time that change or democracy needs a lot of sustainable work for both building it and sustaining it. So we started being more careful about the small results that we achieve. For example, I remember the first demonstration against Ennahda at that time was really a success, because all the Tunisian people was almost supporting Ennahda. Then small battles in the constitution to oblige the deputies to, for example, to mention human rights things or non-torture things was a success for us. And yes, but at that time I started being more specific. Also something personal happened, that I went to university, which is something very full of student life in Tunisia. So yes, I moved officially to the capital with the ambitions of a young man coming from the countryside of Tunisia with a leftist background and a human rights background, moving to the capital to do politics, to be more involved, more engaged, more close to decision makers. And I remember my first day at university, I saw the student union and I was like fascinated. Those are people that I want to be with. The activist that I saw the very first time, I remember him, still remember his name, still remember what he was saying, and that was fascinating. I want to do like this. I want to speak publicly to people. I want to share my opinions with the students. Yeah.
And did you start to share your opinions?
Yes, in less than a week I joined the student union. We call it UGET, l'Union Générale des Étudiants de Tunisie. I remember I went to the office of UGET, and at that time UGET activists used to recruit people, to go to speak to people, to recruit them, and they was a little bit not comfortable with a person coming, no, you don't have to recruit me, I'm with you, I want to join you. Yeah, I started my work and activism with UGET that lasted for almost 4 years. In my first year I was elected in the office of the board of the university student union. The next year I was elected as a student representative, and the year after I was elected in the national board of the student union. And I remember one night before the Congress, which is the big event of the student union, I went to my comrade and told him, Ghassan, I'm a queer man. And he looked at me. It was my first public coming out to a person, and he looked at me and then say, so what? Why are you telling me? I felt like a heavy weight on my shoulders, because being queer and leftist and student activist in Tunisia is something at least not very common, to be openly queer activist in student union. I felt like because my comrades are going to vote to me, they have the right to know who I am, who really I am. And I told Ghassan later than some other comrades, and I had the same reaction from all of them.
And how was being a queer leftist member speaking publicly at a student union under the power of Ennahda?
From two perspectives. Inside the UGET, it was a little bit good, but it was good because it's for me, because I know other comrades who suffered. Yeah, because maybe they didn't have a safety network as I had at that time. I didn't face problems because of that, maybe. But I remember I started facing problems when I got more focus on the queer issue, because in the beginning I was a queer person fighting for general human rights and student rights. But when I started being more focusing on the queer issue in Tunisia, that's when things start escalating and troubles started happening. Yeah.
Could you talk about IARF? When did you found?
Yeah. So at my 4th year in university, I got fired because of my student activism.
From the university?
Yeah.
So you were not able to continue?
Yeah. So I remember that I started a hunger strike, and it lasted for 12 days. And by the end, member of parliament and the minister of higher education and the head of worker union intervened, we say, in the issue, and I was promised to be let back to go to university. So at that moment, I decided that my career as a student activist have to be ended, and I have to look for another perspective. And I head to the Tunisian League for Human Rights Defense, which is the biggest, the oldest human rights organization in Tunisia, and it was like the shelter for people from different backgrounds, because it's very big, very national, very well known. Yeah. And at that time, the Tunisian League wasn't very welcoming for queer people and for youth. And I remember we had bureaucratic problems with getting, for example, the right to do some activities, to attend some activities. And in 2018, me and other friends, we started thinking that it's not possible to continue working like this. And we started Intersection as a group of thinking and a group of debate for youth, queer and women activists. And some of us had bigger ambitions. Some of us, and this is me, in the beginning, I defended the idea of not getting too formal with the Intersection, but little by little we started formalizing Intersection. We struggled for 2 years to get all the official papers of Intersection, and officially after a year and a half or 2 years, Intersection became official registered NGO in Tunisia. In this process, Intersection, as I told you, started as a gathering or group of Tunisian activists. Meanwhile, people from other countries joined the team, and the idea and the dream of Intersection became more big, and people from the region started thinking and debating and joining and speaking our platforms. Yeah, and Intersection became what Intersection is now, a regional with special focus on Tunisia NGO. Yeah.
And what is your main topic or your main goal you're fighting for?
What we planned to work on is women and queer rights, immigrants and asylum seeker rights, rights to access to internet, prevention of radicalization, education on human rights. Yeah, but due to the circumstances in Tunisia and the region, for the last 2 years, we are more focusing on defending human rights defenders, documenting and monitoring human rights violation, empowering human rights defenders with a special focus on queer and women activists, and also advocating for the back of democracy in Tunisia, because we consider Tunisia as the platform of democracy in the region, and Tunisia being democratic again, it's a victory for all the region, for all human rights movement in the region. Yeah.
Can you name some special activities you were planning or doing for defending human rights and doing all this?
Yeah, so our main work is through our platform, Freedom Faces, which is the first interactive, updated, open source platform of human rights violation documentation in Tunisia. The idea of Freedom Faces that we wanted to first of all document, hold accountable people violating human rights, helping and assisting victim to get their rights back, and giving the opportunity for human rights organization, human rights independent activists, academic people to get true and strong information and accessible information. And the idea of Freedom Faces came after the uprising of 2021 in Tunisia, the big social and economic uprising in Tunisia, because a lot of people were put in jail, a lot of people was targeted and attacked, and we didn't have data about what's happening at that time. That's why the idea of Freedom Faces came, and that's why now we are focusing a lot on Freedom Faces. Yeah, so we document, basically monitor, document the human rights, and advocate for the rights of victims.
And can you tell explicit about the success of a successful case, or also a failing case of a special person or individual?
We have some successes, and we celebrate those successes whenever someone, for example, is in jail because of human rights violation by police officers, especially. Whenever we get this person free, we celebrate this. But for the moment, one of I think our failures, that we have a victim. He's in jail because he shared a post on Facebook.
What kind of post?
A video of critique for the president Kais Saied, and unfortunately he's now in jail and condemned by 8 months of jail because of sharing a critique video. And the problem that in addition to this violation of his right of freedom of expression, this man, he's the only provider for a bigger family, and all the family are depending on him to live. And he worked as a guardian in a school, small school. And unfortunately in Tunisia, if you go to jail for more than 6 months, so you're going to lose your job. And the family now are struggling because their son is in jail for 8 months just for sharing a post on Facebook, and they're going to lose their source of income, the only source of income. That's why for the moment I think this is one of our failure, because we couldn't do so much in his favor, and in order to get his right back to him. Yeah.
And how would you say did your work change during the long period of protest, of revolution, of Ennahda, and of course until this election of Kais Saied?
Yeah, so during Ennahda time we struggled a lot. We lost our comrades, they've been killed. I remember Shukri Bel'id, the very famous martyr and lawyer in Tunisia. He was shot in the front of his house during the Nahda time. And for me and for a lot of people, Nahda is taking the responsibility of him being shot. Also the martyr Mohammed Brahmi. So Nahda time wasn't the best time or the era in Tunisia, but at least at that time we had the platform of democracy. We were in a process of democracy, but now I think we lost a lot of things and we are in a worse situation. Yeah.
And you personally had to go to prison already?
Yes, the first time it was in December 8th, 2020. Yes, 2020. I participated in a demonstration in the front of the parliament, and we were detained. Yeah, me and another colleague of mine for 2 days, and after a national and international advocacy campaign and a lot of pressure put it on the justice system or the authorities in Tunisia, we've been liberated. I remember it was a little bit full of emotion because we've been liberated on the 10th of September, the date of the International Human Rights Declaration. Yeah, and we met a lot of people in the front of the court. It was very heartwarming, yeah, to see comrades, people that you really love and care about, waiting in December for a person to be liberated. And yes, it was full of emotion moment. So I've been arrested for the first time December 8th, 2020, and liberated after 48 hours. Yeah. Later then, after less than a month, in January 18th, 2021, I was arrested again for participating in a peaceful demonstration in the downtown of Tunisia, in Shara Habib Bourguiba, the Revolution Street. And this time I was arrested, only me, and I stayed for 3 days. And the experience was harder because I asked, for example, to see a doctor, and they refused because I had some kidney issues. They deprived me of my right to see a doctor, to eat. I remembered what they've done. In the early morning, they take me to the court from the detention center, and I thought that the first day I thought it's going to be today I'll meet the judge and I will be released, either put it back in jail. But no, they put me in the basement of the court for the whole day long, and by the night they take me back to the detention center. So I missed the breakfast, the lunch, and dinner. And it was corona period, and we were put more than 120 persons in a very small room without anything to use to sit on in detention center. And I remember also the next day they've done the same thing. They took me from the early morning, and the third day they took me also from the early morning. And the only reason that they didn't extend my detention, that the laws do not allow them to. After 72 hours, they are obliged either to send me to jail, either to release me. And I remember when I went out, people were celebrating, and the only thing I asked for is give me a bottle of water. I need to drink water. I'm dehydrated. And when I drank water, I remember that I was like my body was shocked, and I felt pain in all my body, and I couldn't speak with people. Please give me 5 minutes so I can take a rest and drink water. Yes.
What was the moment that you decided you had to leave the country?
So yeah, as I told you, I got detained January 18th and released on January 21st. And 1 year after, a lot of charges was pressed against me. So 1 year after, I was here in Sweden in December 2021, and I went back home to attend my court. The night I took my flight from here, the other morning it was my court, and I attended. in one of the cases and the charges. Then after less than a month, I've been sentenced by 3 months of jail. And that's when I decided that arrest may be good for me, and because I was a little bit consumed by getting detained, getting released, getting targeted. My life became a little bit harder because I always found police officers in civil clothes near to my house. My friends sometimes got harassed and bullied by a police officer. That's why I decided to take a rest, go outside of Tunisia for a while, and then I'll be back. In the beginning, I was deciding to travel for only 6 months, but things start escalating in Tunisia, and I decided maybe it's more efficient if I keep working on Tunisia from outside of Tunisia, so at least people do not have to pay a lot of efforts to get me outside of the jail. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the situation in Tunisia right now?
So bad, very bad. Unfortunately, situation in Tunisia wasn't good, but now it's worse. The president Kais Saied took all the power in his hand. Kais Saied is putting politician leaders and political leaders in jail for too much time now, since February, without clear charges, without lawful procedures. And he's controlling all. I think Tunisia is back to dictatorship, and situation is getting worse. Police officers are becoming more brutal because they believe that they are covered by the president. It's like a win-win thing. The president covers the crimes of police officers, and the police institution support the president and stand by his side. It's very bad in Tunisia now, unfortunately.
And how did the Tunisian society change, and the civil society especially? How is the situation?
So I believe that in Tunisia we have one of the most resilient civil society body, because in Tunisia we are used to face dictatorship. So we kind of have the tools, but after 10 years of Nahda era and battles and struggles to win some victories, and now with Kais Saied dictatorship, I think people are a little bit consumed, are a little bit tired, and yes, I think it's very hard to speak about Tunisia now, because even though we struggled before, but at least we witnessed some victories that refilled us with hope, with power to continue. Now everything is getting worse without any kind of hope or light in the end of the tunnel.
So where do you see things going in the future for Tunisia?
I think it's a little bit hard, and I think what's happening next in Tunisia is the worst, because social and economic situation is getting worse, and besides the democratic scene and the backlash of democracy, there is the general economic and social situation, and I think that a lot of pressure is put on the people, and by the end it's going to be an explosion, or if we can say, But as we said in the Nahda time, that what's happening is not leading to something good. We're very afraid if anything worse than Kais Saied and Nahda be the result of what's happening now in Tunisia, because populism is overspread in Tunisia, violence is overspread in Tunisia, gender-based violence is increasing, targeting of queer community became something very common in Tunisia. We lately heard about what's happening on social media. A TikTok and Instagram influencer led a lynchage campaign against queer activists and queer organization and queer people. We witnessed for the very first time a group of almost 2,000 persons on Telegram sharing informations about queer people, queer organization, threatening, sharing information about families of queer people, and saying we have to attack this person, we have to burn the house of this person, we have to do this, to do that. So I think because of the general situation in Tunisia and the decreasing of everything and the backlash of democracy, of the civic space, we're heading to a very hard situation in Tunisia.
Can you define any happenings or situations you can say that really went wrong at this point?
I think we took the wrong way when we didn't believe in our democracy. I think, to be honest, on 25th of July 2021, Tunisian civil society wasn't very aware of what's happening. At least we in Intersection, we were very aware, because one of the specificity of Intersection that we are coming from different background and we have activists from all over the region. So we had the opportunity to speak and to debate with people coming from Egypt, our future in my mind. So we debated a lot about what's happening in Tunisia, and we had this conclusion in 25th of July that what's happening is a coup, and what's happening is going to affect all the Tunisian people and all the Tunisian civil society and political scene. And I remember we were, if not the only, one of the first and fewest NGOs saying that what's happening in Tunisia is wrong. What Kais Saied is doing is wrong. This is a coup. Nahda is not good, but Kais Saied is not the solution. At that time, Tunisian civil society, who suffered a lot from Nahda, wasn't very understanding full of the situation, and some of the Tunisian civil society, they didn't declare or denounce what's happening and what Kais Saied is doing. I think this is what Tunisian civil society did wrong, at least in the last 12 to 10 years. Yeah.
You have to make clear what happened on this day.
Yeah, of course. On 25th of July, Kais Saied took all the power. He frozen the parliament, and he started this process of taking the power, frozening the parliament, then dissolving the parliament.
And it had happened because of the referendum
referendum and all the change that he's making came after 25th of July. 25th of July was the date of the coup, the dissolving of the parliament, the blocking of the parliament work, and the blocking of democratic process. Yes, and what I think about the Tunisian civil society, that at that time we had to demonstrate, refuse, express our refusal of what's happening, say, announce that we are not for Nahda, but we are not against democracy. Democracy is something that the Tunisian people sacrificed blood to win and to earn this democracy, and I feel like we left democracy very easily. It doesn't need too much for Tunisian people to lose democracy than a president going on TV and saying, yeah, let's stop democracy, I'm going to rule the country for the whole life. And yeah.
And what do you think, what did people expect when they vote for Kais Saied?
Yeah, so Kais Saied used and took advantage of the hatred of the Nahda time and the Nahda figures in Tunisia, because they've done very, very, very bad things in Tunisia when they was ruling, and people started hating them more and more, being abused by them more and more, being deprived of their rights more and more. So Kais Saied took advantage of this rage, of this hatred of Nahda ruling, and he turned it into hatred and rage against democracy.
So can you say again when you left Tunisia? And
yeah, I left Tunisia in March 30, 2022. Yeah, and since then I've been in Sweden.
Why did you choose to come to Sweden?
Yeah, because basically intersection have a lot of connections in Sweden, and me as a person, I have a lot of connections here. I have what I call my safety network of partner organization, human rights activist, and working in field person. And also because I felt like Sweden, it's a place where you can do a lot for human rights in Tunisia and the region from.
And what is living and working in Sweden like?
Yeah. Working and living in Sweden is like having a lot of fika. It's like working a lot remotely, especially in winter. But I got to learn a lot from this journey and experience, to be honest. Being a human rights activist in Tunisia is something very spontaneous, very based on activism and courage and giving and a lot of things. But here it's more strategic, more goal oriented. So yes, that's what I'm getting from this experience. Of course, there is a lot of diversity here. I heard a lot of stories. I got to know a lot of people with different backgrounds. So yeah, it's good to be here in Sweden, to be honest.
And how does your work look like?
Yeah.
So you're working remotely, what are your activities?
Basically, I'm doing two different things. In terms of Tunisia, working on Tunisia and the region, I continued doing what I've been doing, contacting stakeholders, state agencies, and stuff like this about Tunisia. And I have small side activism, is working with a queer community coming from Arab and Islamic background here in Sweden. In the beginning, I started volunteering with a Swedish organization here in Stockholm, working on queer issues as a mental health support group leader. Later then, I'm working more individually in supporting people, newcomers to Sweden from Islamic and Arab background in their process of asylum, in their process of integration. I'm doing a little bit of translation in needed cases. So yeah, basically I kept working on Tunisia and the region remotely from here. For example, in a few weeks we have a delegation of Tunisian civil society coming here to Sweden and heading to Brussels to meet politicians and to speak about the situation in Tunisia and to advocate for the freedom of political prisoners. So yes, that's it.
And how does the political situation in Sweden affect you and your work?
Yeah.
How is the political situation in Sweden?
You know, I felt like cursed because Sweden have a big history with leftist government ruling. When I firstly arrived last year, a right-wing government and parliament was elected, and for the first time an extremist with a Nazi background political party won the election, and he's supporting the government. So yeah, it's becoming a little bit harder for immigrant people here, for the international community here in Sweden. The human rights work is facing a lot of cuts of funds. At least the international development funding is becoming lower here in Sweden. The general atmosphere here in Sweden, it's becoming more difficult. But by the end, it's Sweden. Sweden and Swedes, they know how to protect their democracy very well. They struggled a lot to come to this point. And to be honest, I believe in the Swedish democracy, and I believe that Sweden will be an escaper for people seeking freedom and peace from other places in the world, even though it's becoming more difficult. But yeah.
Is there, you were talking about an international community, is there especially a Tunisian network or a network from MENA region where you can rely on in Stockholm?
To be honest, not that much, because in my experience here I lived too much in the countryside outside of Stockholm. My safety network is basically some Swedes and some MENA friends. But I think it's something that I want to work on. I've been discussing this a lot with friends. We're trying to build a network of queer and feminist and human rights activists in diaspora, because I believe that our work from outside Tunisia should continue, and we should not say that now we're not involved anymore. We have a lot of things to do. And we have a lot of work to do. That's why it's one of my strategic goals, at least, or aims here, to build this network of people from the region and people from Tunisia. Yeah.
How is it to be queer in Sweden compared to be queer in Tunisia?
I remember once when I firstly arrived here, I was texting a friend and I told him, do you know any place queer friendly where I can go and grab a drink? So he was asking, like, what do you mean by queer friendly or gay friendly? I told him a place where queer people can be who they are. So he told me, man, you're in Sweden, Stockholm. Everywhere it's queer friendly. You can be who you are in Stockholm. But yes, this is the full side of the cup, if we can borrow the word from the Arabic. But even here, there is a lot of work to be done. I know a lot of trans people, for example, struggling in order to get their health rights. I know a lot of queer people struggling to fix their immigration situation, to be approved as asylum seekers here, and to get the refugee status, especially with this new government. It's becoming harder, and for queer people, it's hard to flee the country, and it should not be too hard to prove that they are queer, to prove that they were persecuted in their country. So yeah, the bright side of the story is that Sweden is a heaven of democracy and human rights and queerness, and celebrating queerness. But the other side, or the dark side of the story, that in shadow there is a lot of people struggling, and we should highlight their stories. We should empower them. We should give them more chances and possibilities to improve their lives.
And do you see yourself in Sweden for a longer time? What are your future plans?
Yes. In the beginning, this wasn't the plan. But now, as I told you, I started building this safety network and making it broader. And yes, I believe that we can do a lot from Sweden, and that Sweden can be home or homish.
Okay. And to get back to the more international perspective again, can you talk a little bit about the recent migration agreement between the EU and Tunisia, and what's your opinion about it?
Yeah, so I think populism in Tunisia is agreeing a lot with populism in Europe, and Meloni and Kais Saied are the best combo ever. They've done what Tunisia and the European Union couldn't do for years. I believe that people have the right to travel, to live wherever they want, and it's not equal or fair that Europeans have the right to grab their passport and come to Tunisia and spend a lot of times in Tunisia or in other countries, while Tunisians are struggling to get visa, and they're taking the risk of crossing the borders in a non-formal way. I believe that's not fair. This is not good, and even it's shame on politicians in the European Union, because European Union as an institution consider themselves as the mentor of, or the guardian of, democracy and the rule of law. Rule of law and democracy and the human rights goes in both ways. It's not only for Europeans, but I believe that human rights movement in the region have a lot of allies in Europe, and we can count on our allies and on our comrades. They are doing a very huge work, and we should appreciate the work they are doing. But I really believe that what's happening between now in the bilateral relationship between Tunisia and the European Union is dangerous. The level of coordination in returning people from the European Union to Tunisia is becoming more intensive. I really don't agree what migration agencies in the countries of the European Union classify Tunisia as a safe country. That cannot be very true when speaking about vulnerable groups, about minorities. So yes, I think it's dangerous what's happening. We should work against this. We should gather a lot of forces against this, and we will win by the end.
So you're hopeful.
Yeah.
And what, in your eyes, is the EU's role and responsibility in supporting and strengthening democracy and democratic movement, civil society in Tunisia?
Yeah. I believe that European Union should empower civil society, should invest in healthcare, in education in Tunisia, more than giving the police orders in Tunisia weapons and vehicles. If you really want to solve Tunisian problems, do not send us weapons or vehicles for force orders. Do not invest in I don't know things that you and us know that it's not worthy. Invest in education, invest in healthcare, invest in civil society, invest in the real democracy in Tunisia. And Tunisian knows that in the past European Union had a good relationship with Ben Ali, and we know that unfortunately decision makers are not very concerned about what's happening in Tunisia. They are concerned about people not fleeing from Tunisia to European Union. So yes, I think this is the position of European Union, or this is what the European Union should do.
So in what way is the EU co-responsible for the current situation?
Yes, in a way, yes. Because, for example, in Ben Ali era, they were aware and they knew everything, but till the last moment of Ben Ali time, coordination and mutual work was doing well between EU and Ben Ali. And yes, when I see Meloni meeting Kais Saied once a week, it's more than Kais Saied meet Tunisians or a politician in Tunisia, or a trade union people in Tunisia. So yes, I think they are co-responsible.
What does your utopia look like, if you have one? What do you dream about or dream for of the future of Tunisia?
My dream now is to attend the moment of living under the rule of law and democracy in Tunisia. I dream about not being criminalized because of who I am in Tunisia. I dream about the moment we are free to say whatever we want to say and to think whatever we want to think, and not being judged because of our color of skin or sexual orientation or gender identity. I believe that with the hard work we can attain this moment, but for the moment it's a dream.
Okay, I would end like this, but if you want to add something, now is the option.
Yes, I want to salute all my comrades in Tunisia, people who decided not to leave the country. We really count on them. They are very much appreciated, and we believe in them. At least me, I believe in them. I appreciate everything they do, even though very tiny things. And yes, we will win by the end.
Thanks a lot for
Thank you. Bye.